This is the Bold Moves Podcast, where real people share the decisions that changed everything. Hosted by Mat Torres.
Alrighty, so this is the Bold Moves Podcast, and I got a really cool guest today. So I got Mr. Michael Hernandez. Mr. Michael Hernandez here, he's a real estate agent extraordinaire. He's with Your Home Sold Guaranteed. And I'm really excited to have you on the show, man, because I followed your journey, and we both were at the same real estate office when I first, started dabbling in the industry, but you kind of just like took off. And so I'm really excited for you to kind of share your story and yeah, just kind of give a little introduction about, who Michael Hernandez is.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So Michael Hernandez, well, I started out in real estate kind of as a gopher. A lot of things I would never really thought to be in real estate. And with my older sister, she was the first one in our family to start doing real estate. And she had an account through Wells Fargo doing foreclosure properties and, of course, her regular residential real estate. And with these foreclosure properties, she was needing to do a lot of reports throughout the valley on these properties, make sure that they're checking in on them. At the time, there was a decent amount of vacant homes in the Phoenix area with the foreclosure rates that we had at the time, the bubble that we had. And so with these foreclosure properties being vacant and where they were at, naturally invited a lot of vandalism and theft to where I laugh because there's some newer realtors that don't experience the things that, other realtors over the markets, and little things like having security cages around your air conditioning units in certain parts of the valley. They didn't understand why that would be the case.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And so that was part of the vandalism of people stealing like copper lines off of the home or parts out of the air conditioning units because they were vacant. And at the time, there was a vast area of where there was homes where there wasn't a lot of homes around it. So like you may have had a master plan community that was built, but then it was farmland throughout it. So like kind of Maricopa or even Santan Valley for a while, there was areas where there wasn't a lot in between the valley, the East Valley or the south part of Phoenix, where there was a lot of people traveling into town. So a lot of these homes were vacant during the day. So it was ripe for burglaries and theft. And so that was kind of the area where they were at, was in Levine, where they had a lot of new construction out there, but then it was kind of close to where South Phoenix was. And then, with people traveling into town, there was nobody home.
Yeah.
And so with the vacant homes, that was especially relevant for theft. So I had to do these property reports for her. And eventually it became I needed to get my real estate license.
Yeah.
And so once I got that, I took off from there.
Nice. Yeah, I remember that whole market and, things getting just lifted, like the copper pipes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny you mentioned Levine because that was like, that was our first house, my first house.
Oh, yeah. I
remember. Yeah. And you sold it. Yeah. For that. But it took us a while to get out from under there because we bought like in end of 2008. And then from there, it just kind of like took a downhill spiral, and yeah, we were upside down in that house for a long time. And I remember as soon as we could get out from under it, like we jumped on it. I think about it now though, because like we totally could have made a lot more money on it if we just sat on it for a little bit.
Sure.
I mean, Levine with what it is, great area, but in the area that we were at, it was really close to that South Phoenix border, and it just it was rough.
Yeah.
We saw somebody get shot in front of our house.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, there was
You want to leave real fast.
yeah. I think I remember hearing the SWAT team surrounding one of the houses down the street. Yeah, and like helicopters and cops. Like we're not talking one or two cops. We're talking like they brought
Full presence.
Yeah, yeah. And then all of a sudden, like you hear glass breaking, and then like it was different. Yeah, I mean, when we first got married, we lived in Scottsdale.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like big. But we didn't have kids yet. And then once we had kids, we were like, yeah, we got to leave.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That changes perspective for sure.
Yeah. But I remember when we first met because 2013, that's when I got my license. And your sister, Jessica, was like the first person I interviewed with to join a team. And like, that's the team I was joined, and you were starting at the same time I was. But I was going to school at the same time, ROTC.
Yeah.
Like, dude, there was no way I would be able to like manage uh, a real estate business and school and ROTC and all that. And yeah, so I remember us working, together and even doing a few open houses and, kind of showing me some things because I think you were there for a little bit before I even.
Yeah, 2000 December 2012 was when I started.
Okay. Yeah. So man, I'm glad you hit the ground running and kept doing it, man, because I see some good stuff.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, the first year was I didn't sell a house my first year. That was yeah. I probably did the most rentals in that office at the time than I think most agents have ever done in their entire career. I just found a niche and just happened to run with it really well. And then that groundwork did turn into buyers eventually. Once they got the taste of living in a home, renting in a home for a little bit of time, then wanting to become homeowners. Yeah, I do rentals every so often because it does help with keeping the business going. I don't make it as much of a business model that I did my first year trying to get my feet wet. But I also don't knock the fact that that was a good source of learning from having conversations with agents or not agents. Well, actually, yeah, agents and the clients and just going through a process and figuring out, okay, because there's not with the real estate contract to buy a house and the process there is pretty straightforward. Now with rentals, it's kind of wild, wild west because you've got so many different aspects of property management companies that do their own rentals to uh, realtors doing their own rentals and how they go about doing them is vastly different.
Yeah.
And so I don't knock the fact that that was a great learning experience for me. I mean, for the amount of work that it did for me for a couple $100 is not so much for me to continue on as part of my business going forward, but for a newer agent, the return in value from just experience far outweighed what I was gaining in that.
Yeah. Wow. So first year, not a lot of home sales.
Hmm.
When did it actually start to click for you? Or like, oh yeah, this is like, I can see this happening for me.
The first transaction I got was from a lender partner of mine. His name is Brian Iverson, and he was with a company called Bay Equity at the time. And I believe it was, if I remember correctly, somebody from their church. And he, just was trying to help me out. And I appreciate that to this day. Those were my first clients ever. There was a young couple that just got married, looking to buy a house in Chandler. And I think from that point on, once I had, I guess, the skill set to really deliver on helping somebody buy a home, I never really looked back from there. And I can't think of the second transaction that I did after that, but I know that first year, I believe I did 5 or 6 after, or the second year after that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's tough, like I think we were having like a little training and most agents, be lucky to get 12, a year, and what do you think was it that really kind of just sparked that motivation to say, no, I need to make this happen. Like this has to work.
I definitely think it was more of a stubbornness, pridefulness, and quite frankly, it was also a time in my life where like I was doing a lot of things just being, I don't want to say teenager because I wasn't a teenager anymore. I was in my 20s. But when you're in the early 20s of your life and you're just either out there partying or you're doing the opposite where you're kind of like nose to the grindstone and avoiding the partying, and then you kind of look back at both like, well, I didn't do this, but I wish I did this. And for me, it was I just didn't want to do that anymore. I think I've already spent a couple of years of just kind of messing around, and I really just wanted to keep moving forward in my life. And uh, that was part of it. And I definitely didn't like doing hourly stuff, like being stuck somewhere from hour to hour.
Yeah.
I missed out on a lot of opportunities to be with my family and do things because I had to work.
Yeah.
And I think that also drove me to where I just didn't want to go back. Kind of the um, mentality of like, I don't remember if it was the conquistadors or the Vikings, whatever, when they get somewhere, they burnt their ships because, it's a sign we're not going to go back, and that was kind of the idea. It was like, that ship sailed. I don't want to go back.
Yeah. Mm. So this show is all about bold news, right? I mean, we look at all of the big leaps of faith that we've taken, the giant risks, and really just kind of look at the outcome and like
Sure.
what good came of it, what bad came of it? What do we learn from it?
Yeah.
That type of thing. So, I'm curious, like with your whole journey, what is that one dramatic, just moment that sticks out with you that is something that made you stop in your tracks and be like, okay, I need to make a bold move.
Well, I think I got two of them really that's kind of stuck out of my head. One more recent, the other one is somewhat recent, but it was more so, I guess in a sense, it was more of a familial issue that I chose to make a bold move with. I'll start with that. Is when I first started out with you and my sister on that team, that was the bold move, was deciding to leave the team that was with on my sister's team and kind of sort of taking over to a certain extent. And, leaving my sister, a family member, somebody that got me into the business from the very beginning, to having to tell her that, look, this isn't working for me. I'm going out on my own. And I think that the one part of that came from, um, both business, obviously, that was one of the main factors, but realistically, to the same extent where like I was not wanting to go back to doing the same thing because it was not moving my life forward. And my daughter was about to be born around that time. And in 2019, was the bold move to talk to her about leaving her team.
Wow. So was that amicable? I mean, was there any like hard feelings or anything, or was it
Not that anything that was expressed to me from her end, I'll tell you that. But I think it was more so an understanding that this was kind of where we were going, because she was also doing things on her own with as far as like progressing in her life. She was, I think, at the time going through her school for the Catholic Diocese in Phoenix.
Oh, wow.
And so she was working through that. And I don't remember her ever mentioning going back into the military, but I knew that there was still an itch there, for her. And I don't know if she saw it or maybe she did and she just didn't express it to me. I know I didn't see it. I just knew there was just some things moving around that didn't necessarily have real estate in the forefront any longer.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, I see her every once in a while.
Yeah.
'Cause she's a chaplain, in the National Guard, and so it's kind of cool. Like, oh, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
So that's neat.
Yeah. And she's in such a unique space. I always make fun of her and kind of tease her a little bit that, she's doesn't really answer anybody but God now, realistically, in the military. And that's such a weird space to be in the military, more or less,
Yeah.
But I'm happy for her that she found something where she was able to marry her two things that were big in her life, with her faith and the military.
Yeah. That's cool. So when, we look at that risk, why did it matter to you so much at the time?
Well, definitely my daughter. I think that was the biggest thing. My daughter and my family. I already had a little boy at the time, and things were working okay with the way that it was. But I think as my family started to expand, um, I needed to look at more so my business instead of, I guess, our business, which truthfully wasn't really our business. It was still her business.
Yeah.
So I think that was the biggest thing, is where do I see myself in the next few years? Is it running this team with her, even though that wasn't necessarily her I think idea anymore? And did that make sense to kind of, I don't want to say dragging or taking on dead weight per se, but it's certainly a lot of baggage that I would have had to navigate, versus I think realizing that this was the end of a chapter.
Yeah.
And being okay with the end of the chapter. That was the part I struggled with too, because I am too loyal to a certain extent, but I think it was almost becoming loyal to a fault in that moment.
Hmm. Was it primarily because there wasn't like you can sense a desire to build the business and the team, or was it like a comp decision, business decision, leads? Like, what was your?
I think it was more so the ebb and flow of where that team started to where we had a decent amount of agents, and then it was just me for a little bit, and then that was kind of like, I think it wasn't a team any longer as much as it was just me doing the business, and then that was the case. Then I think it made more sense for me to be on my own.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. That's always a tough move,
Yeah.
like when you've got, a team and support, and then you're venturing off and into the unknown, really, because, when you're going solo, you have no idea how it's going to pan out. But
Yeah, imposter syndrome became a bigger thing at the time because I was leaving her team, and how much of that was her or the team, or how much could I have been successful on my own. Those were a lot of questions that just became more relevant in my mind that I was navigating and fighting through in my own, I guess, emotional fight.
Yeah. So you made the move. You're on your journey here. New team. Like
Mhm.
you're building your brand, your team here. Like, what were some of the challenges and like the roadblocks that you faced? I mean, to build your business to where it is now. I mean,
Well, I think that there was a question of where am I going to get my business from? How do I go about this stuff? Now I'm taking on all the costs that, I got shielded from because of being on a team and the things that my sister had already established, her own brand, her own niche of business. And, her leading a veteran team, of people that served in the military, and being the focus of veterans and military community with VA loans. It was like, I didn't serve, so how do I still continue on with that message without, I guess, not being taken serious? Or because I understand that there is the camaraderie, there is the unity community from the veteran side that, somebody that didn't serve doesn't understand them, can't approach the same conversations as they would if, with a veteran, or even level of trust. And I think that was part of to trying to find my own, not to say niche, but like identity.
yeah. So was there kind of like a segment of the market that you gravitated towards? Because Tri Freedom was real estate or veterans, right?
Mhm.
And then your brand, was it geared towards any specific like market or anything? Yes.
No, actually, at the time, it was just more so just doing as much business as I could, and I didn't really want to hitch my horse to something that, that maybe been something that was wrong.
Yeah. Okay. So you said there was two bold moves.
Yeah.
What was the next one?
So the next one was a recent move. So I've been in my office at the time for 13 years, and in that time frame, I've grown a lot, seen a lot, done a lot there, and um, to me, I'd always had a great office environment, people there that supported, my goals and who I was. And slowly but surely, it kind of changed. People left and things happened. And at the end of it all, it was a moment in time where, like, was it the market that was my issue? Sure, the market wasn't that great. We got to about 8% in interest rates. And so that was tough to navigate. Um, or was it me, or was it my office? So once I was able to kind of pinpoint where that was, it was essentially big part of it was my office and the support I was getting from there and the training I was getting from there, because that's why I do pay them, money out of the compensation that I receive in transactions is, to help support my business. And at that time, it wasn't the case. And so I had to struggle with, again, being loyal to a fault at somewhere that really, at the end of the day, possibly could have cost me my business by staying there longer.
Wow.
And the people also. So my transaction coordinator was amazing, Chris Ashley, you know him. Um, some other agents that were in the office that were supportive of me. And at the end of the day, I had to realize that, like, they're not paying my bills either. As much as they are supportive of me, they have their own businesses that they're running. And to some extent, they're in competition with me because we're out of the same office, maybe doing the same deals or potentially coming across the same clients. And I had to understand that, like, look, I have to make this move again. I have a family. I have things that we want to do. My kids are getting bigger. We've got to take that into account of how to support them. And, moving to a different brokerage was a very big thing for me, because I also had to kind of go into an unknown of, does this brokerage make sense? And with realtors and lenders, you can go probably 3 or 4 places in a year, and looking for a fit. And that was really something I was concerned with. Like, I don't want to move again.
Yeah.
Because there's obviously costs associated with that. And,
Yeah.
where I was at in my business, it was like, would that also hurt my business to the point where, like, I'm out of business because I made the wrong choice of a brokerage for support?
Hmm. Do you feel like you made the right choice?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I've heard some good things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The brokerage that I'm at now, Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, I mean, just from the name itself,
Yeah.
that was one of the things that, like, KW was where my previous brokerage was. Great brokerage, great training, all that stuff to a certain extent. But I never got a piece of business because I was at KW. The brand that was my brokerage never got me business. And they encourage you to build a brand underneath them.
Yeah.
Which is great. That's awesome freedom. And at the same time, why am I paying you the amount of money I'm paying you if your brand doesn't help me get business? And so that was the one thing that I liked about this place, and then the training that they offered. And I think it was also a timing thing with the NAR lawsuit that they had against a lot of the brokerages and some of the changes that were resulting of that. It just fit what was going on in the market more so than what I've heard from other places that have given me pitches to switch.
Yeah. Wow. So is there anything that you want to share about the uniqueness or special offering from your brokerage? Because it's pretty unique, right? I mean, there's
Yeah, I mean, it's so we're our whole system is centered around guarantees. So your home sold guaranteed, or I'll buy it. Essentially is the main tagline with the seller side. The buyer side is you love your home, and if you don't, within 2 years, I'll either buy it back or sell it for free. And a lot of it just comes back to a performance-based, style of doing business. And I've always been very efficient, and I've always, understood that my performance and how I do, should elicit more business from another Joe Schmo realtor who's, hasn't sold as many houses or doesn't have a system in place or doesn't bring the value for that client to want to continue using them. But I think the uh, performance-based aspect was a big thing for us, that like, what, I'm not here just to sit around like a pseudo fat cat, and hopes that somebody else sells your home. Like, I'm proactively trying to sell your home, and if I don't, here's how the repercussions for me for not doing that. Like, I'll guarantee to sell your home, or I'll buy it, buy it from you, or sell for free.
that's cool.
So I think there's those performance-based aspects that I really, really liked. And I think for the market right now, like, there's a house in my neighborhood who's on their third realtor, and they're all big name realtors, big name groups. And, to me, it seems like there's no, performance there from even though as big as they are, there's just lack of what they're saying they're going to do.
Yeah.
And there's no repercussions for what they're saying they're going to do, because they just get fired and then they move to the next realtor.
Yeah. I do have to say, I do have to apologize actually, because I mean, you helped us buy our second house. And I remember, I had a few conversations with you where I wasn't as pleasant as I probably
Oh, fair.
should have been. So I remember, I think I remember I think I yelled at you over the phone, and I think you got a little, I could tell you were a little upset, but you kept your cool. Like, you held it, you were professional. But I still think about that. I'm like, oh man, like I shouldn't have.
Oh, yeah.
I shouldn't have done that.
No, and that's the thing though, is that I didn't put our relationship in the point of like, look, you shouldn't have talked to me like that because we are friends. Like, no, this is a business transaction. I understand that there's certain things that are going to be said or, hurt, feelings per se. And to me, to hold that grudge or put those things together is not, I'll never be able to do really good business if I'm always going to, you know, mirror those two things together. I think if you separate yourself from those things, then, things like that can happen, and then we can go back to being friends later.
Yeah. It's so interesting how the transaction of real estate is such an emotional roller coaster. And I don't know if, I mean, anyone who's purchased a home or sold a home, they know, but like, if they haven't, I don't know if they realize how much it is. And that's where I always come back to, in my mind, part of that compensation that you're paying, a sliver of it. I don't know how much of that sliver, but I think is deserved for that agent to deal with the emotional, um, ups and downs of interacting with their clients that are going through that. Because I've sold some, a little bit of homes and stuff. And I remember almost having to play almost like a counselor type role, and just like calming people down and just sharing, the market and, because your brain can do some weird things and you get, emotional, and then those two things, they can mess you up and they can
Oh,
mess the
for
deal
sure.
up. And so really to save the deal, you do have to kind of play that role. Yeah. Have you encountered that a lot?
Yeah, I mean, and more so now in the last few years, I'd say, and I think a lot of it has to do with a sort of a common trend in real estate is that people see realtors that are successful and making money, and they naturally think that, well, I'm just gonna go get my real estate license, right?
Yeah.
Which is, fine. We don't have a very high barrier of entry, although the market will kick your butt and spit you out, that's for sure. And so you'll learn that from that side of it. But the ones that do survive, it also depends on the market they come into. And that's where I feel like I'm having to deal with that more so now, not so much the clients, but also with the agent, the title company, and even the lender now, is if they got into business around when COVID was going on, and at that time the market was so crazy where you put a sign out front or didn't, and you sell your house with 5 different offers, or you had to waive this inspection or waive that appraisal or pay over asking price, give me your firstborn kind of deal.
Yeah.
To now where the market is currently, they are struggling with some of those interactions or things that really causes to have to where I have to tiptoe around um, those type of landmines as well. So not only do I get it from the clients now, it could even be the cross agent that I'm working with or the lender that I'm working with, and so those skill sets are on full display a lot of times is to navigate how to play nice in the sandbox, but also be um, I don't want to say strong-willed or to be, short with people, but you've got to be a little bit more assertive while being nice.
Yeah. I remember that. I was doing some transaction management,
Uh-huh.
and because there was a buddy of mine, he had a flat fee brokerage at the time, and he was just doing deals all over.
Oh, yeah.
Because I mean, that market, and then also at the same time not charging very much. It was just I remember dealing with listings, and it was routine to have like 20 offers first day it listed.
Yeah.
And over a weekend having to sift through and go through like 40 to 50 offers.
Oh, for sure.
Like it was insane. And seeing those weird, oh, no appraisal, we're not even gonna, worry about that, or not even gonna do an inspection, sight unseen, just stuff like that. And you're like, are you sure you want to do that? And it's just interesting because now, having to go back and, I've had a few listing appointments where I'm like talking to people and there's just no equity. There's no, you ain't getting a check if you sell this house. Like, and it's a harsh reality, but when you pay $100K over its value, what do you think's going to happen when the market levels out? It's just people got emotional.
Yeah, definitely get emotional, and they, that's where that story gets created about their real estate experience, which is understandable, and I think it kind of goes back to a little bit of we have a form, market conditions advisory. Basically, the market is cyclical and real estate values go up and down. I think we take a little bit our forms for granted, and some of the uh, I guess representation or lack thereof when it comes to a good deal or a bad deal.
Yeah.
I certainly still understand from the salesperson's perspective that, like, look, if you want to buy something, who's to say for you to tell you not to buy something?
Yeah.
From the real estate standpoint and the fiduciary standpoint, I do need to make sure you're at least aware
Yeah.
that, hey, this is not a great deal, but if you want to buy it, I'll navigate this with you. But just know X, Y, and Z could happen down the road.
Yeah.
And that if you want to sell this house in 2 years, you're not gonna be able to sell this house for 2 years. So I think there's a balancing act there that not every agent necessarily follows.
Yeah. I will say there was something I learned from you that I actually put into practice whenever I was like working with buyers and sellers. And it was and you do a really good job of this. Like if we're going in a home And I know like me and my wife, we were like, oh, this is great. Like this is it. And then you're like, wait a minute. Okay. Like, let's look at this, let's look at this, what looks like a flip. So things to be aware of is some things are hidden or, like,
Sure.
lipstick on a pig type thing.
Yeah.
Or, like, hey, this is like facing, your backyard, you have this big plant back there, power plant, or you have this big road, or, there's power lines going over here, stuff like that, which you don't really initially notice. And sometimes you might not even notice at all until it's too late.
Yeah.
But that was something that I liked, was that every house, you weren't trying to say, okay, do you want to put in an offer? This is the house. This is it. Like, this is the one.
Mission breath.
Yeah, exactly. And I really appreciated that. And that I told myself, if I was going to, sell anything, sell a house, like that's what I wanted to like emulate. I wanted to
Sure.
make sure I was advising them and I wasn't trying to push anything on them. Because I've worked with agents. They were like, okay, let's put an offer in. This is going to go tonight, like that.
Oh, yeah.
thing. And I just think it means a lot to other people. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
they don't feel like you're just in it for the cash,
For sure. For sure. I think that was taught to me early on because of the things I saw in foreclosures, and navigating those listing. And then also with helping veterans relocate here. That was the biggest thing, for helping them understand that, look here, I know it's a hard thing for you to trust somebody that, on a property that you're not here, especially somebody that's trying to help you buy something. I just had this happen the other day. He called me and said, I got all these, I got this house. It matches all the boxes. I really like it. There's a lot of things I like about it. I just want you to go check it out because, from the photos, that's why we pay photographers to take great photos of a property. Just go see what it looks like. So I went over to look at it, and after looking it up, because he doesn't see this on Zillow, is the previous listing was on there. It was about $75,000 higher.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's obviously $75,000 lower, which now put it into a short sale. And so I went over there to look at it. Short sales, whatever, we're fine as long as the house looks okay. And he was VA, so there's some VA requirements from the VA standpoint that the home has to meet. And from that standpoint, we'd probably be okay. There was some peeling paint. The VA doesn't really like that. And but when I walked into the garage, which there was no photo of on the listing, there's a ginormous wet spot that already had a black mold growing. Water heater didn't look like it was operating. Air conditioning units looked, man, I don't know if they would have worked or not, but the black mold spot was a big one. And then once I started digging into it, as far as the short sale goes, there's solar on it, which solar, it's a crapshoot nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's more so crapshoot, especially with the people backing the solar loans or the solar care or the warranties, because they're just falling like dominoes left and right.
Yeah.
And this one had a company called Mosaic, which is in bankruptcy right now. And so just from that standpoint, look, the house might be okay. When you start throwing all these other things into play, like the solar and how to satisfy the solar lien that's on that property, you're essentially paying it. If it's a lease, you're going to have to pay it to get the what is it called? The lien against the property for the solar off. So that way the short sale can be approved. But if it's a lease, then they're going to remove those solar panels because you don't own them. Now, if it's owned, that's great. Then at least what you're paying for to get that lien satisfied, you're going to keep those panels. But in this particular case, since they're in bankruptcy as well, Mosaic, you're probably not going to get this short sale done. You're just going to be wasting time and energy on a property that may never ever close.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I roll up to a house and I'm like, oh, there's solar.
Yeah.
It's like, because you don't know, like the deal with it, and also even if it's owned and there's still upkeep and maintenance.
Oh yeah.
And that's not cheap,
Mhm.
especially if something's got to be repaired or fixed or something, my mom's dealing with that. I helped her buy her house when the rates were smoking. Like, I think she's got like a
Yeah.
like 2.5 or something. But yeah, she's having to, drop like $1,000 for the solar because there's like something that needs to be done or something.
That's with panels.
I don't
Oh, okay.
know. Yeah, I know it's not cheap, but I mean, it was owned, so they owned it out as part of the warranty thing or
Sure.
yeah, I don't know the details, but I know like there's still stuff
Yeah.
you got to deal with. Yeah, I don't think I'd ever get solar.
It's hard to show it as a benefit any longer because at the time there was a lot of benefits to having solar, both from, leasing to purchasing to the actual panels themselves, the credit that you get from on the tax side of it. But then once the utility companies caught up on it, then it became less of a benefit because then they figured they were losing money left and right to solar companies and solar panels. And, they really regulated that out of the way.
Yeah,
So
that's too bad.
yeah, it really is.
What kept you going during the toughest times that you experienced?
Well, that toughest times probably experience was when rates shot up to 8%.
Yeah.
That was tough. And ultimately it was just, okay, so that's not going to change. Where do we go from here? And how do I continue making, money for myself, my family, and continuing in business? And thank goodness that there is new builds.
Yeah.
Because that certainly helped a lot. If I wasn't able to help a client get a regular residential home, we were looking at new builds, and where they were at. And I think the biggest thing was not developing another system and tools to be able to, navigate new builds, because there's not an MLS for new builds. You can't just go find one centrally located place. I mean, there might be some stuff on MLS, but you're going to have to put your feet to the ground and go into the offices, build relationships with those agents, and figure out how to direct clients here and there.
It'd be nice if there was.
They wouldn't want it.
Yeah,
They wouldn't want it.
that's too bad. I mean, like, it's a pain driving around to find new builds. If somebody wants new builds, I try to go online and try to find some, but yeah, that'd be nice if there was like a central place.
Well, and I think that's also where if you take the time to build a system around it, then you can find your value and why you are able to help more clients find new builds. So like if or have like just getting on an email blast from certain new builds for their available properties to where they're at with their incentives, and just build an Excel sheet and just keep that updated. You could certainly create your own database, but it's also got to be a person that's willing to do that.
Yeah.
To understand that what value am I offering for my time and effort to do this.
Yeah.
A lot of it is, essentially right now they're paying, decent amount for agents. They're giving incentives to clients, and, the prices they're okay in certain areas.
In your opinion, what do you think who do you think has the best new builds right now? What builder?
Best new builds. To be honest with you, you can go from one new build community to another and have a completely different experience with the same builder.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think as far as like pricing cost for value?
Oh, pricing cost for value, probably DR Horton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just they've got a pretty big community called Radiance over there off of Ellsworth. I'm sorry, Ironwood, and I think it's Ray. And yeah, they've got a pretty good master plan community in there. I've sold a couple clients in there about $425 for 1,500 square foot home. Got their closing costs covered, was able to get a lower rate, and walked in within 30 days of it being built.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, so they're people there. That's always going to be the thing in any service-based industry. It's the people.
Yeah.
And that's why I said you can have a completely different experience from one DR Horton community or Meritage community to the other. Is whoever's building the houses, level of care there, to the sales agents there as well.
Nice. So I didn't know this until, you mentioned it at our BNI meeting, but you like sci-fi. You're a Star Trek kind of guy, right?
Yeah, I'm a nerd at heart for sure, in a lot of aspects. Just from video games to even being a nerd about sports. I'm a pretty big sports fan too. But sci-fi has always been something that I don't know, just I like the idea of what that comes with. I know we've talked about Star Trek a lot. If I'm a Star Wars fan too as well, but I think that kind of stuff just elicits imagination, and elicits the aspect of like, Star Trek's kind of based around exploring. As much as we would love to see the battle, with the ships and all that stuff, it's always been around the exploring, the stories, the interactions with people, from discovering new races or alien beings or whatever, to how they interact with them, and just person to person stories as well.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I was a real big fan of TNG and Voyager. Um, I started to watch the newer stuff and like Discovery, and it's hard to watch.
Mhm.
I know, like I don't know, I can't. I was telling I was telling someone else this. It's hard to watch with your family, your kids.
Yeah.
When they're like throwing f bombs and stuff
Mhm.
on the show, and it's like, come on, man, like Star Trek.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you seen the Orville?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Watch a little bit of that.
Yeah, well, that one's cool because that one actually also reminds me of like TNG.
Mhm.
It's funny because it was originally supposed to be like a spoof.
Yeah.
They're supposed to like, oh, making fun of
Mm.
Star Trek, and then it kind of evolved to where like, no, this is like a legit show that actually like honors Star Trek.
Mm.
I don't know if you noticed it, but the later seasons they like tried to really make it their own, and um, Jonathan Frakes actually, I think, directed a couple episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was one episode in particular. I don't know which one it was, but the opening scene was like you would have thought it was an episode of Star Trek TNG.
Sure.
I was like, what is this? And the angle and the intensity and the way they did it and the
Yeah.
music and just everything. And then come to find out it was Frakes that
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
did it. So I just thought that was
Right on there. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just for me, those aspects of just because I deal with that with real estate, it's the people, the stories, the things you encounter. Like when the real estate industry was going crazy, I was walking up to an open house with my clients because there was a certain real estate group out there that was only doing 1 hour open houses at the time. And, driving up the price, I had to tell my clients, like, look, if you see this name attached to this house, you're going to pay double and we don't have the ability to pay it. So don't send it to me because we can't go to it.
Yeah.
And, but when we walked into this open house, seeing somebody walking away crying in their realtor's arms saying that I'm never going to buy a house because this is going on right now. Those are the type of stories that, you experience, or that first time home buyer that's at 55 years old, but they're the first time home buyer in their family, that kind of stuff. Or like a veteran that's coming into town that finds something that's for their kids and their wife while they're deployed, that kind of stuff. Or vice versa. The wife and the kids are trying to find a house while the husband's deployed already.
Yeah.
So there's just so many levels and layers in real estate that it's the people and the stories that I think are really why I like Star Trek and that kind of uh, sci-fi stuff, and it just hits home to what I do in real life.
Nice. What is your or a favorite book, podcast, or resource that inspires boldness to you?
Hmm. Favorite book, podcast. Hmm. Honest. I you know I can't really say I have one or the other. I mean, for those type of things, I try to either have it be more educational, where it's helping me do something, or more of a place to unplug.
Yeah.
I think that's how I utilize those more so than anything else. I think for what I see from other people, I think that's more so where that's elicits that boldness from like history, for people that took chances to do the things that maybe they were too scared to do, or, like I'm quoting a movie, quoting history, but National Treasure,
Yeah.
with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
One of the things he talks about is the invention of the light bulb. It took him 1,000 different ways to figure out how to not make a light bulb. He only needed the one way to learn how to make it work. And I think that's the biggest thing is for me is just seeing where people have failed in the past, and or have overcome extreme adversity in their lives to continue to move forward and accomplish the goals that they wanted to do, and not let that moment of failure derail the amount of work that they did.
Yeah. Hmm. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Who best piece of advice I've ever received. I think the best piece of advice I've ever received is, um I have to say for me it was, I think, more so just directed at my family. and knowing that anything that I do in life, that as long as my family, my kids and my wife are proud of me in that moment, then that's all that matters.
Cool. Now, in one word, how would you encourage someone else to be bolder today?
One word. Anytime I think of say it in 2 words or less, I think of that moment of Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
He's like, say it in 2 words. He's like, Chris and Paul. And like, that's 3 words.
If you got 2 words,
I'd just say, I guess to put it in one word, chances.
okay.
And then to kind of elaborate is that you just take chances.
Yeah.
Just take shots. It's again, quoting a funny movie, but there is merit in what he says. Is you ever seen the movie Take Me Home Tonight?
Mm-mm.
It's with Topher Grace, the guy from That 70 Show.
Yeah.
It's about a guy that basically, it's in the 80s, and he went to MIT. He did all these things. He was a really smart kid in high school, and then he ends up working at Suncoast Video. And his dad, who is he is what's the guy from original Terminator? Not the Terminator, but Reese, the guy that's actually went back in time to protect Sarah Connor. Well, that's his dad
In Terminator?
in the first one.
Oh, the first one? I don't remember.
Yeah, well, that guy is his dad, and so he basically tells him like, look, you can't say that you've ever tried if you never actually took a shot, and I don't care what you do, where you go, just take shots.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing is that, you can say I didn't get this or I didn't do that because of somebody else. But if you never took the shot, then really it's on you. And I think that's the biggest thing is that we kind of shrink to a level to not take those shots.
Mm-hmm. What's that quote? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
And it could be just talking to somebody. It doesn't have to be something that's, earth shattering, or ground shaking for you to take a shot. It could be just start a conversation with somebody one day or sit on a podcast, even though you may not like to be on camera or like to talk or whatever the case may be, just take shots.
Yeah. Cool. Now, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to share before we wrap up today?
We covered a lot. I don't necessarily think there's anything that we didn't cover that I want to, I guess, hit home on again, other than, for me, real estate isn't just about selling houses. It's about the people involved. It's about helping those people accomplish what they're wanting to do for their shots that they're taking. And that's really what's important to me when I'm what I do.
Cool. And how can people get a hold of you?
The best way, easiest way is my cell phone number, 602-303-8998. I can take text messages. I can take phone calls. Give me a call.
Cool. Right on, man. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I'm glad you came on. Glad you were able to kind of share a little bit. And until next time, we are out.
Thanks for watching the Bold Moves podcast. For more episodes, visit our website and follow us on social media. Keep making bold moves.